Hello everybody, my name is Kamaleao and today I'm going to ramble a bit about the Standard and Wild, the upcoming game modes for Hearthstone, and what my thoughts about them. I've looked a little bit at other people's reactions and most of them seem to be somewhat positive, or mostly positive. Personally, I'm a bit skeptical. Might be just because I'm a skeptical person in general, but I think, well, I'll just tell you my reasoning and then you decide. First of all, what is Standard and Wild? For those who don't know, when you go into play, right now you have Ranked and Casual. I don't know if Casual will stay in the game. I have no idea actually. Didn't think about that. But you won't have Ranked, regular Ranked. You will have Standard or Wild, both with their own ranking system. Standard will mean that only a limited number of cards are going to be in the format. For the first standard season, GVG and Naxxramas get thrown out. The basic and the classic set will always be part, and then the newest number of expansions. Wild is just going to be what is ranked currently. You can just use all the cards. Now, what does that mean? Let's go into my collection. That means, for me, that certain types of decks which I really like to play and play around with are not going to be playable in standard format. I like to play themed decks, like I have a Death Rattle deck. It's not very good, most of the themed decks, but personally I enjoy it. Like I take a mechanic or an idea or a single card maybe sometimes and look at that and think, okay, this is an interesting idea and how can I build a deck around that? So for this deck I think this is not really anything special. It's just a lot of Death Rattle cards, Baron Rivendare, Fugue and Stalag, Kel'Thuzad, stuff like that. And then I try to play around with that and try to build a deck that uses those mechanics and still somehow tries to be a little bit strong and be able to win games. And for me that's very interesting. It makes a big part of the fun I have with this game is taking an idea, building a deck, then trying it out and finding a way to make it while staying true to that idea, strong enough to actually win a few games. And those ideas can be a bit strange, like Sir Bounce-A-Lot, where I'm playing around the rogue's ability to take cards back to his hand with Shadow Step and Youthful Brewmaster and Ancient Brewmaster and Vanish. And lots of cards like Bomb Lobber and T-Keelbot and so on that I can throw back to my hand, play them again and get something out of it. And I think it's really fun to play these decks. I don't want to play the same type of deck. I don't want to play a Handlock or a Face Hunter or whatever all the time. Actually, I don't want to play a Face Hunter ever, but yeah, I think you get what I mean. Obviously, this is going to be difficult in a standard format where you limit the card pool, because even right now, stuff like the bounce deck doesn't really work because there's not enough cards that have universally good battle cries. I mean, when you have a lot of stuff you can silence, then it's good. If you have a lot of single targets with 4 health and you can bomb lob them repeatedly, that's alright. It's good. But it's rare. Usually, yeah, it's problematic. And the same with other decks, like, where's my beastie? There. Like a beast druid, that's not really the type of druid that's the standard idea of a druid or the normal idea of a druid. But with time, more and more beasts become added and it becomes possible, somewhat possible, to play a beast-driven druid. So these types of deck will probably not be part of standard. And it's going to be very difficult in standard to play any theme or any idea of a deck that's not, yeah, more or less intended by Blizzard, I think. And that takes out a lot of creativity, and that's a little bit sad, I think. Now, you could always say, yeah, sure, that's standard, it's a tournament format, just play what you want with your strange theme decks in wild mode. And while that's true, that's obviously possible there, I'm afraid that it's not going to work in wild either anymore. Because so far, when there's a combination that's too insane, at some day Blizzard nerfs it. Like they did with, well, a number of cards. I think you can just come up with ideas of that yourself, like Patron Warrior or anything. They do that rarely as it is, or as it was. They rarely nerfed cards, and like some of the nerfs are like with Sylvanas, where they just made her a little bit weaker or a little bit worse, and that was alright. Other times, well, the Patron nerf was quite insane, where they took a card and completely wrecked it. But they do that rarely right now. And in the future, when you know that standard is the tournament format, and wild is just, yeah, you can play, what are they going to focus on? Where are they going to focus their efforts to make cards balanced? Standard, obviously. Now, when you have them focusing on standard, they focus, well, they will probably focus, I mean, this is obviously all speculation, but I'm guessing that they'll focus on making the cards balanced within standard. I don't think that they care too much about crazy combinations becoming available in wild. If, like, they release a new card and that's insane when you combine it with a card from GVG, I don't think that they're going to nerf either of them. So the power creep and power jumps in wild could be, well, wild. Could be insane. And especially since wild also still has a ranking system, and you become legendary in that, people are going to play the best and strongest decks possible, which is alright. It's just in a format where power creep is going to be, or is probably going to be very, very, very insane because of more and more combinations, and I really don't think that they're going to balance for that. So power creep becoming more and more, and those are the decks that you have to play against most of that I will have to play against most of the time. And that will make it very, very difficult to play like a pirate deck. You could argue that, hey, with more cards and more combinations coming in, there will be more pirates coming in, and that will make the pirate deck stronger, and more combinations might open up there. And while that's possible, I don't think so. Honestly, I'm skeptical about that. I think standard will be somewhat balanced, and I think in wild you will have certain combinations that are just insane, and if you don't play them, you get wrecked. So that's my general problem or my general assessment of standard and wild. Now for the beginning of the new... Oops, just dropped something. For the beginning of the new standard season, or the first standard season, the problem I have right now with the game is that it's extremely aggro driven, extremely tempo driven. You have a lot of face hunters, you have aggro shaman, aggro paladin, aggro everything. And that is with a lot of mechanics and a lot of cards that are good against aggro. Like Zombie Chow and where is it? The Sludge Belcher. And from Goblins vs. Gnomes you lose the Heal Bot. And yeah, That's not good. Because from the way I see it right now, I mean, all decks lose stuff. All decks lose a bit of power. Some decks get completely wrecked, like mech decks are not going to be the thing, probably. Depends on what they add. But if you just take out Naxxramas and GVG, mech decks are gone. But also, gone are some of the most important some of the most important tools that control decks or slower decks have to stabilize to take back the game. And I did a little experiment. I didn't play too many games because I really don't enjoy playing Face Hunter, but I made a standard Hunter. So a Hunter that only has cards that are going to be definitely going to be in the game when standard hits. And this is not a good face deck. There are way too many expensive cards in here, and it's not very refined. I just threw it together in like 5 minutes and then started playing. And I won quite a number of games with it. It's obviously a little bit weaker than your average Face Hunter, but it's strong enough to... yeah, it wins games. Quite a number of them. Against people who still have Zombie Chow. Against people who still have the Sludge Belcher and the Ancient Healbot and everything. And it still wins. Not as much, but a significant number. And so I hope very, very much that with the first expansion that comes out with the standard and wild format, that they'll add a substantial number of mechanics and cards and tools to fight the face hunters and all the aggro decks, because otherwise I'm afraid that the game will turn into even more of an aggro fest, and that's not what I enjoy. So yeah, I'm not saying, oh, the game is done and I'm never going to play again and everything is horrible. I'm not. I think with the addition of right cards, they can salvage standard or even improve standard a lot above what ranked is right now. I'm very skeptical for wild, and I am somewhat skeptical for standard because it really, really depends on what kind of cards they add and how they nerf existing cards. Like Savage, Force and Savage as a combo is going to be even stronger than it is right now and stuff like that. So yeah, that's me rambling on about standard and wild. I'm Kamaleao, have a good time.